Hello, hello, and good morning from the studio above the clouds with Serendipity Sellers. I'm going to jump in to some clay refinement and making a piece finished. I'm going to grab a tea. I just heated up some water. So I've got some water. I'm going to put that over some tea leaves, get a little bit of honey, get that ready, grab my clay, and then we're going to get started. And what we're really going to look at is it's a little bit more philosophical, really, but how to finish a piece and how to decide when it's done, um, as well as some very practical things to keep in mind as you're kind of finishing off. So we'll talk a little bit about that. One thing to note is that I went ahead and fired all the pieces that I had available. So everything is fired. I didn't obviously hold anything back for this, which was my mistake. So I'm just going to do something start to finish here. I'm going to start something. I'm going to do a pinch, a real quick pinch cup with a handle on it. And then we'll take it through kind of that refinement and how do we decide when when it's done and what do we want to think about as we get to that stage. So I'm just going to build something beginning to end here and talk through that. But something that's really, really fast, and I'm just going to kind of dive right into it uh, and build it something kind of small, and then we can talk through those kinds of things. But first things first, let me walk over there and get my tea. I'm going to get that. And have my tea, and then I'm going to grab the clay. Focus you down here on the table, and you're going to be at the same place where I have been painting. I've got a cover down on top of where I've been painting, but you're going to be in that same area. So it's a little bit of a mess, but that's all right. And you can see the stuff I've been working on. Actually, you can't see it because it's sideways, but I've been working on the tarot card collection. And this is the sun. This is Kale from the Story Keeper's Daughter. And he is the sun card. And so I've been working on that, and spent quite a bit of time on him last night. He needs a good bit more, particularly the dragon. But we'll get there. All right, so I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to get my tea. I'll focus you guys down first. And then we are going to dive in, man. Here we go. Here we go. So there we go. We got you on your little spot. I'm going to pop you that way so you're not looking at my feet. Anybody wants to look at my feet? All right, I'm going to grab my tea. And then let's get into this. And one of my favorite parts I think about, there's so many parts I like. Oh no, I'm out of honey up here. No, that's not a favorite part. I like honey. But one of my favorite things about pottery and art in general is just so much is your choice. People ask, they're like, well, is this good? Should I leave it like this? Should I put a foot on it? Should I smooth this more? Should I, whatever the thing, whatever it is that they're asking about. And the answer is, I don't know. What do you want? It's your piece. It's your piece. What do you want? Do you want it smoothed out more? Do you want it straighter? Do you want it taller? Do you want it blue instead of brown? I don't know. I don't know. It's your choice. It is your work of art. I can tell you what I might do with it in that moment in time. But it is your piece. And so you get to make so many choices around it, which I think that's really powerful. I think that's amazing. I don't just think, I know, there's research, there's science, there's neurobiology, neuroscience that teaches us this. That is so good for kids. So good for kids to make those kind of choices and to have that kind of accountability, to fail sometimes, but to do all of that in an environment that's, it's the arts. It's not as threatening as it could be. It's not, we're not talking about taking somebody's heart out and doing surgery on it or anything like that. But it's also, and I think we forget this, like we focus on, oh, it's good for kids, and it's unbelievably good for kids. Let me move this. I'm going to get clay in it. But it's so good for us, adults, grown-ups, because so much of our life can be rules based and just, you have to do these things at this time. Death and taxes, man. Death and taxes. Um, and so I think there is something really powerful about learning some technique and then kind of being left on a, okay, you got the technique now. What do you want this to do? How do you, what is finished to you? How refined do you want this piece to be? Just all of that kind of stuff. I actually find it's the grown-ups in my classes who struggle with that the most. It's not kids. In fact, the younger the kids, the and I have not quantified this, and being a researcher and having done, statistical analysis and all that kind of stuff. So I always feel like I have to qualify, like I haven't actually done the research. I haven't actually put this down, but I have noted that it would appear to me that it is the kids, the younger kids, who, man, they got no problems. They got no problems making decisions. They got no problems deciding something is done or they like it. And they'll tell you to pound sand in a really cute, nice way if you question, because they are confident and feel good about whatever it is. So I'm pulling off some of this to hold it aside for some of the trimming that we're going to do. And that is one of the things you want to keep in mind. If you want to add pieces, you have to have something to add. So I'm pulling some stuff off just so that I have some pieces available. I don't even know what this one's going to do, but I'm just going to set it over here just so that I have it. And then I'm going to shape this. But yeah, so the little kids, like, they'll take you to task, man. They're like, no, my stuff is perfect and I love it. And don't you tell me to change it. And I don't care how much experience you have. And I love that crap, man. I love that. But then as people get older, and particularly when they are adults, grown-ups, we're talking 20 plus, 30 plus years old, 40 plus years old, 50 plus years old, all of a sudden, everyone really wants to be told that what they're doing is right. Like, I've noted that in the classes, they really want checklists, and it's no shade at all, because that's enculturated. That is how we are, taught through public school systems, through just the general education system, through the workplace. Um, but I do definitely notice that in classes is like it's grown-ups who need a lot of reassurance, and who need um who a lot of times really want everything to have rules and to look the same and feel the same, and they can get intimidated at first whenever, you're the question is, no, how do you want it? I can tell you how I do it, but who am I to tell you how to do anything? Whatever. This isn't my piece of art. This is your piece of art. So don't listen to me. That it's very intimidating at first, and then it's very liberating, I think, once people kind of get past that initial, wait, there's not a right way or a wrong way to do this. And no, dude, there's not. There's technique. There's technique that's going to help you out, that's going to help your pots stand up and not fall over. You want to make sure you've got air bubbles out of it. You want to, da 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 da, the stuff. And we'll go over, we learn all that stuff. I can teach you that stuff in this video in a couple of minutes. Not to not get myself business. But then it's really about decision making and imagination and curiosity and some level of fearlessness, because you can, and that's the thing. Oh my gosh, how many pieces have I made beautiful and then destroyed at the end? Because you can do that. You can do that. But the beauty of pottery is, dude, as long as it's not fired, just smush it and start over. And that can be kind of like, I guess it can feel like a waste of time, but I try not to look at any time as wasted in the studio. It's all practice. It's all moving towards mastery and towards better understanding. So I try not to look at any time, even if you walk out of the studio and really everything you were making went kaput. I, that's not really wasted time. You learned something. So, but that's hard. Those are all hard lessons to learn. Those are all really tough shifts in your brain, given what we're taught to value, and that it's output and production and a product. And if there's not a product, it's failure. And get in the studio, spending some time, even if you get nothing out of it that you can physically see, is still time well spent. All right, so pinch cup. So how do we decide when this is done? Well, I mean, some of it's deciding on, particularly if something is for function. I do almost exclusively functional pottery, stuff that can be used, that does something, that carries water, that holds, that holds a casserole, whatever it happens to be. So I do almost exclusively functional, except obviously the little mini monsters. I think they serve a function. They serve the function of absolute delight, but they're not exactly. I guess they are, because they hold a little battery operated votive candle. So even that, I guess, could be, but most of the stuff is that I do is like to actually hold things, move things. So now we're deciding on what we want it to do. I want this to be a mug. So I need to add a handle to it. So if I want a mug, it needs a handle. So I'll get that here. And that's part of being finished. So part of being finished is just really what is the piece's purpose? What does it have to do? What does it have to be done? And so let's say that this is a mug, and so it has to be finished. It has to hold a liquid, and it has to be able to be easily held. And I specifically, because it's a mug, want it to have a handle. I want it to have a handle. Beyond that, I decide I also want it to be kind of quirky and cute. And I want it to have, let's go with a Halloween theme. So there's my list. There's my done, my overarching done checklist. So done checklist is mug has to be able to hold water, um, or a liquid, a decent amount for to drink. Has to have a sturdy handle, and I also want it to be kind of cute and quirky. And I want it to, which is not quantifiable. So my researcher brain immediately is like, cute and quirky. What does that even mean? How do you quantify that? Um, but we're just gonna say it, cute and quirky. And I want it to uh have a Halloween theme. So those are gonna be the things that mean that this is finished. And so that helps a lot, is making those decisions early on of what am I actually trying to do with this? What does good look like? And then when you hit that state, you make some choices around, okay, do I want to spend more time on this, making this even more refined, or, or are we finished with this now? So I want to put that there. I need to do a little bit more. Cute and quirky, right? Cute and quirky. And I said the keyword quirky, so now I'm trying to build little elements that give it some additional quirky appeal, whatever that means. There we go. Okay. Now, what this does mean now, so you've made decisions about, or I've made decisions around the design of this that you have to think about from a user experience. And that's also part of deciding when done is, and easy to lose track of. Easy to lose track of if you're an artist and you're just getting into like the form and the function and ooh, it's pretty. But what is this going to be like for an actual person to interact with? So kind of small. I can only get two fingers in here, and that's okay. I mean, that's not the end of the world. There's lots of even manufactured and sold mugs that are like that, but you just got to be aware of that. So I can only get two fingers into this handle. Um, and so, that immediately put some restrictions on who's going to use this mug, and the handle goes over the top of the mug. So now it can't be like, if somebody's storing it, they can't store it upside down or anything like that. So I've already made some restrictions on this mug and on the way it's going to be used by somebody, just based on what I've attached to it. And so I've changed the end user experience because of that. And those are things that you also want to kind of keep in mind and think of. That's part of being finished. Because for instance, I have, where is it? Right here we go, right behind me. So I have these wheel thrown mugs that I did. This is actually an okay one. Oh, there's the one that's not okay. Okay. So I did these on the wheel, and they look pretty cool. Nice texture down here. There are some places in that texture that will slice you open. This is not a sellable mug. This is not a sellable piece, because I didn't. Now I could come back over it with a Dremel, or some other tool with sanding, a diamond sander on the end of it, and get some of these pieces off here. But if I just spent a little bit more time finishing this at the end, I could have made sure, some of this has to do with the glaze, but some of it is that I left clay on to texturize it, but it's just a little too sharp. And I definitely could have paid more attention to the end user experience for this. So I keep this one around really kind of for that, and haven't done any sanding on it, because I could bring this back but for that reason, because I think it's a really good example of, like, it looks like a perfectly good mug from a distance, but then you get close to it and you actually touch it and you could cut yourself on it if you weren't careful, because I didn't do a good job. I did not do a good job. So, all right. So we put a handle on it. So at this point, really, I've reached, right? I've reached my goal. This is it. Other than I said I wanted it to be Halloween themed. So for a Halloween theme, let's say, do we want good old fashioned jack o' lantern? Or do we want to do like a bat or something on the front of it? Hmm, 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 hmm. Let's see. I need a tool. And I could wait till this dries a little bit more. And in fact, like if I wasn't making a video, I might, uh, just so that it's got a little bit more, not quite leather hard, but got a little bit more oomph to it. But I'm going to go ahead and work with it just to kind of show you we're doing here. If I have all my stuff for a book fair set up over here, so everything is, I'm blocked. I am massively blocked from getting into some of my supplies because I'm doing a book fair tomorrow. All right, we'll try this, I guess, with what I've got. Okay. So this is still mushy, because mushy is indeed a technical term. It's not, just so you know. It is not. And I am looking for that. Did I not bring them out closer to me to get them out from behind everything? Do I really have to go like under this table to get my tools? Did I do that to myself? Really? That's unbelievable. It's not actually unbelievable. It's totally believable. It's actually kind of par for the course. But yeah, I seem to have, well, here. I don't want to go under the table, so I'm going to make tools out of stuff I have laying around that's easy to get my hands on. Because I don't want to crawl under the table. That's right. Okay. We're going to make this work. We're going to make this work with what we got. Okay. So he's a little bit wonky, but aren't we all? Aren't all the best people? The best people in life are free and wonky. All right, so let us do, let's see. Oops, there we go. You can go off to the side. That's good. I'll put that back on here in a minute. All right, I'm just going to go with the old-fashioned jack-o'-lantern for the moment. I do need to practice. I've got an idea for a bat, but I haven't really practiced it yet. So I'm not entirely sure how it will turn out. And I need to just do it flat. But a jack-o'-lantern is just a jack-o'-lantern. And note, I am not cutting all the way through this. Oh my goodness, no. Because I do not want to go into the cup. I only want it to go this far. And I think maybe this will be better. You know, the practice is always to have all your stuff lined up before you get started. It's very helpful to do that. And so you can see, you know, there is one, I could pinch this a lot more. So I could make this a taller, thinner that I would have as the artist. And that's part of, doing artist, you have choices about stuff like that. So I could make this taller and thinner. I could make it wider. So, with whatever amount of clay you have, you've got a lot of considerations around what you want that to do, which again, I just think is, part of the joy of it is because you got to use those parts of your brain, all that decision making, balancing, and then, when it's functional pottery, really thinking about the user experience as well. So empathy and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and thinking about what it'll be like to hold this and drink from this and okay, what do I need to do to make this to shape the lip a little bit more, which I'll show you in just a minute to make sure that somebody can use it effectively. So there's just a lot of different skills that come into play beyond just we have a tendency to talk about the arts and things I think like this is left brain or right brain, and so much of that is debunked completely because it's your brain. You are using your brain. Um, and even when you think about what left and right were supposed to really represent in something like pottery, you go back and forth so much. Um, go back and forth so much between different kinds of thinking, different considerations, whether you're thinking out of yourself about other people, whether you're thinking in yourself with your imagination about other worlds and forms and shape and color and texture. And then if you're an artist who's also a small business owner, whether you're, thinking about budgets and marketing and shared spaces and all of that kind of stuff. Um, and even just the art part. I mean, continue with that. The art part, art part. Um, there's so much chemistry involved that it can be kind of intimidating. Really, that can be honestly really intimidating because, particularly, really for about any kind of the arts I've ever been involved in. Because if you mix your own paints and pigments, anything like that. But oh my gosh, pottery. Whoa, there is a lot of chemistry. Uh, not that you like have to be amazing at all of it, because I'm not. There are people out there. It's a great community who are super helpful, and it's one of those that really teaches you to uh, rely on other people. Know your strengths, and then know where to rely on others and ask questions and be part of a larger community of practice. Because the chemistry part of it is definitely my weakness. That's my weakness in beer brewing, also. I brew beer, and they're super tasty. I'm good at recipes. Um, but I also know people who are really into the exactness, the science side of it, and I'm more of the I always joke I'm more of the art side of it because I'm like, oh, no, this batch will be different than the last batch because I was just feeling different. So I let it go for half an hour longer or added extra 2 pound of grain or blah, 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 blah. Ta-da. So that checked. Something else on my list there was it had to be Halloween themed. So Halloween themed. Now it does need a little bit of smooth those out some with some water. And so that's something you want to think about. That's one of the end user experience elements is so all those places I just cut, uh, I was showing you that other mug that had all the little bits of clay that could cut. And this one now, that's what I'm smoothing out, had some really sharp edges and it just needed to be smoothed out nicely. One, depending on how much you want it finished and smoothed out, you might want this as a totally, totally, totally smooth mug. But also because just from a actual use, somebody could have literally cut themselves on that. And could have quite literally cut themselves. And so those are things that you want to think about. Is my piece of pottery safe for someone to pick up? Or am I building something that can actually cut someone? Does it need to come with a warning label? And based on my goal of what I was building, my goal being a drinking mug, does that make sense? And for a drinking mug, no, it does not make sense that there be something on it that's gonna hurt somebody potentially. So we need to remove all of that. All of that. I almost went through with that nose. I did not, but man, I came close. Woo, I came close. All right, so let's re-stick our handle because for this to be the kind of mug I want it to be, that is part of our checklist, our done list, the done list. It's nice to have what does it mean to be done. And from a workplace perspective, because I do workplace training also, that's incredibly important. Because that's also how you can, tell you finished your job, that you're reaching expectations, that your employees are reaching expectations. So that done list, what does done look like? Requirements list. It's called a requirements list in project management. Or in well, I guess project management, but I was thinking deal with that a lot in IT specifically and working with website development or LMS or anything like that. All right, sticky is sticky. So now that's going to stay. That's not going to come splooting off like it did. Again, technical term, splooting, like it did before. Press that down. Press that down. Okay. If I really wanted to, I could make that handle look like a bone. And that might be kind of cool. That's not part of my done list. My done list was shorter than that. But, and that is how, things expand because you go, wait a second now. I have my done list, I have my requirements, but now let's expand outside of the requirements list. Boy, does that happen all the time. Okay. Oh, that was better. I needed to be at that angle. All right. Well, according to my requirements, I could actually call this done, but I don't want to. because it's cute. But now that I'm here, it could be better. So what I'm going to do is take one of these pieces, and one of the things that we talk about a lot when we talk about trimming and finishing a piece is the foot. And the foot is the bottom, the base. And in the case of, like, I made this here recently, so there's this piece, and this is the foot, the bottom. You can see I need to do some cleanup. And in this case, I stamped the foot so that it has the same pattern. And so that was part of how I finished the foot on that piece. Um, some others, I don't, one of my things is that I don't necessarily, like, this is a very natural foot, just a piece. And then all I did on the bottom of it was just covered it in uh, some glaze also, and then put a signature on the bottom. So that was a super easy foot. That was just a very natural, unfinished. Um, Trying to find another one here that would be a particularly good example. This one is just a straight, unembellished. There really is no foot on it. There's no transition to the base. But then the base itself, rather than do any real massive finishing on, I just made sure it was nice and flat. And then when it came out of the kiln, this is a dishwasher safe uh, paint that I paint some of the bottoms with. So that's another way. But what we'll do here, and the ones I have like this are actually downstairs in the bin for a show. I'm going to make a foot for this because it is our skull mug, and so it's a little creepy. And you know what? Let's do something like let's do something creepy. Let's do something fun for this. Let's make this uh total Halloween themed. And so I just thought of this while we were talking. I am going to use the clay that I had over to the side. We're going to see. I've never done this before, so bear with me. Pure experiments. This should be fun. I'm going to raise it. I want to actually do a raised foot to call this done this time. So, whoa, don't hit that. I'm so clumsy. A mess. Okay, here we go. That's enough. I don't want to raise that far. Like, it's got to be 6 inches off the floor or anything. Shout out to kitchen staff. Okay. Here we go. Just making worms. I'm making worms. I'm making worms. I'm making worms. Worms are how we all started with Play-Doh, right? I'm making a worm. Before we graduated up to little cat and dog figures. Snake. I guess you'd call it a snake. Just make me want gummy worms. Actually, gummy bears. There's oh man, no, I want them. I'm vegan, so don't eat stuff that's got like the animal products in it. So a lot of the gummy products are off. Uh, Unfortunately, breaking my heart. Off the table, but of course, not all of them. Some companies make stuff with vegan ingredients, and there's one called Albanese, I think it is. I think that's what it is, Albanese, something like that. But oh my gosh, they're all like fruit flavored, and they're vegan, and oh my gosh, they're good. Uh, they're so good. We haven't had those. I enjoy the heck out of those, and we just haven't had them in a while. Let's see. Okay, wait a second. What am I doing? So if that's that doesn't he need to do the same thing? Why is this hard? Why is this hard? This should not be hard. Why is this hard? It should not be difficult. Why am I doing this live? There. No. Yes. No. No, 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 yes. Madeline Kahn. My girl. Can I have a conversation without movie quotes? Probably not. Nope. Whoa. Hey. Ho. That's. Yeah. Oh my god, don't do that. Not now. Not after all this. Okay, that was ridiculous. But it's a star. And if I hit that handle one more dang time, I swear to goodness, I say. Oh, janky star, oh, janky star. How could we even tell quite what you are? Okay, it's not as janky as I thought. It's just a little janky. Why am I not working with appropriate tools? You know what? I think I actually want this corn. Now that I'm here, seeing how this is coming together. There we go. I prefer that. Yep, it's better. That was some fuzz. And this is how added requirements can impact a project. You know, it's taking me as long to build this little stupid base. Not stupid, cool, fun, awesome, groovy, stupid base as it did the entire rest, I think, of this mug, including the skull carving, which is really the cool feature, and will be what works really nicely with some glaze. But it's this no nice words to say base that is taking all the time and energy. And that is how added requirements can screw up your project, folks. Just as was not supposed to be a project management lesson, but there you go. Be aware last minute added requirements. All right, let's make sure. Of course, I made it go over the edge, but no, don't stick to it yet. Wait a second, dude. Okay, perfect. Oh man, let go. What was that? Okay. Do. At some point, I'm gonna have to crawl under a table. Or just wait. It's just this weekend. That's soon. It's soon. I'm scoring. So much scoring. Because I need this to stick. And now I'm going to do the same thing all the bottom of the mug as well as the bottom of the handle. Okay. And a big brush. I like big brush. There we go. Let's put this in the bottom of the skull mug. Alright, and now I want it to sit at a slight angle. Put all the way on, all the way on, all the way on, all the way on. There we go. Gently but firmly push it down. And then I want a smaller brush to clean up the edges. Making sure you can't see any of my scoring lines. Sure there's a nice smooth join, not just sploogey clay. Anywhere there might be a gap, I'm trying to kind of, there's really not too many gaps here, so that's good. Make sure that it's filled in. Sploogey clay. I use such technical terms. What I need to do, I should have used a spinning tabletop. Lazy Susan. This is not ideal. Don't do this. Look at my head. Look at my head. Okay. All right, so somebody picked this up. Now, things about this from a finished perspective, just a end user experience kind of thing. You know, the base that I just made for it makes it more, a little more likely to break, but so do handles, because handles are more likely to break than not handles. So once you add a handle on, you're adding breakability. Well, the base I added on has, let's go ahead and pull it up so you can see it better. It's got edges that come over, so it's like a pentacle, and it comes over. Oh God, why do I always go in the wrong direction? It's spastic. That come over some, and I'm going to finish that bottom a little bit more. So, you know, again, from using, it's a little more likely to break now. There are pieces of it that are a little bit more likely to break. So you just be aware of that, that every decision that you make, every design decision that you, hey, looks cool, little bit more likely to break all of a sudden. And so, you know, just be aware of that. And whenever you give it to someone, or even whenever you sell it, that might just be something that you want to point out, that, hey, this is, you know, be particularly cautious around this part of it. But that's also something that people know. Final thing I'm doing here before I turn this over is a nice even press down on the rim, and that'll help so that it doesn't crack. You get that compression, so that's important for being finished, being done. Is that compression? That's a must do. And now I'm pinching. This is one of the things I do. This is not a requirement, but I think that this is a nice finish. I just pinch, not all the way, but just so that the clay starts to meet a little bit in the middle and we get a nice angle on it. There we go. And that helps with drinkability. That actually helps with the usefulness of this piece. All right, so I'm going to flip it over. Now you'll notice I brought a board and some plastic wrap, and I can't turn this upside down on, because I made that design decision to have the raised handle. I can't turn this upside down here now, which means I really can't use the spin. But since it's raised, I can pull this out and turn this over and sit it on here and have it lean over the edge so I can work on the bottom of it. So that's what this is so that we can do that next part here. Da, 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 da. There we go. Or I could have waited, but where is the fun in that? Because I'd need to have stuff in all manner of different stages to show you the various different stages. So we're just plowing through. And so now I'm making this look better because now it just looks sploogey, unfinished, rough. Sploogey. I like sploogey. That's good. That's a good part. And there are some places where there actually are somewhat sharp edges, which again, just from actual usefulness, that's not something that you want on your pottery if you can help it, particularly if it's going to be something that's functional, because you hurt somebody. You can imagine I am not putting very much pressure down on this because this is still very moist clay. So I am not really pushing down. All right, I don't like that right there. Much better. Now I'm also smoothing out where I did all that scoring on the bottom. You know, there's places where obviously this isn't touching, so I didn't use that. So I'm just smoothing it out and then pushing it up against the edge of the foot so that it creates a nice firm seal. Lest we forget, there's some over here that scored. Over here. And over here. some point, you just have to go, you know what? We're good. We're good. I do want to hit one thing on the handle while it's in this position. Any visible tired, unjoined, was my fingernail surfaces together. Everybody looks good. Make sure there's no cracks here. I don't see anything like that. That's good. Make sure none of these gaps go all the way through. They do not. Another one. All right. And at this point, this is again one of those where you could futz at it forever. But you know what? This is the solid Halloween mug. It does all my checklists. We did the requirements. I wanted it to be a mug. It needed to have a handle. I wanted it to be kind of a quirky Halloween theme, which I think I have achieved all of that. And I gave it a little extra bling, little extra requirement by putting the fun foot on it. So I ramped it up some there. But it does have the Halloween theme. So we filled all of our list. We hit our checklist. We made sure. So now what we have to do is just carefully let it dry. And the last thing I'm going to do with it is I do have these these are actually really handy. I didn't use them for a long time. And then I was like, oh, these are actually pretty cool. There we go. Helps give it a nice, even, open, straight lip. Oh, yeah, that's nice. All right, I'm going to leave it in there for a couple. But that is our mug. We met our requirements. That is a great way to determine if you are done. Is actually make sure that you have defined what done looks like, but kind of before you get started, and then keep that end user experience or the customer experience in mind of somebody actually interacting with your piece. Make sure that they can't get hurt in any way, and at least be aware of the elements on your piece that break off easily, or are fragile, or add to how fragile the piece is. So just some ways to determine what done looks like, and decide that you're done. And at some point you just have to be like, you know what, I've been building one mug for an hour and 4 minutes. I'm done. Dog, I'm done. So there's also that element of it. All right, folks, I will see you tomorrow. Actually, I'm back on Friday for Creative Fridays, the Making Fridays in the shop at 11. So in the studio. Then I'll be back on Monday at 11. And this Saturday, which you can watch this at any point, so like that means anything to you. It's August 22nd. There is the Authors in the Wild Literary Festival at the Dahlonega Butterfly Farm, and I am going to be there as well. So in person, not like on YouTube Live, like for realsies. So anyway, y'all have a good one. I'll see you again at the studio above the clouds.